Welcome back, DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast to review the Indy GP on the Indy road course. And this race traditionally hasn't been a barnstorming one the last couple of years, but my word, did we have a bit of a crazy one to kick off the month of May ahead of the 110th running of the Indianapolis 500. And it's certainly been a long time coming, as we had a first win in papaya for Christian Lundgaard in a really, really topsy-turvy, entertaining race.
Yeah, the best in recent memory, really, at least that has remained dry. I mean, we had some rain and that cancelled qualifying, which was unfortunate. We'll get onto that a bit later on. But yeah, it's a funny old weekend, this, because obviously it's condensed into 2 days. It can often feel a little bit rushed, a little bit frenetic, pretty damn busy for the teams. And you know, it's often just overshadowed by what's to follow in the next fortnight. And the race itself, you know, everyone's kind of got this track down to a T from the amount that they've raced there, tested there, and it can be a bit dull. But actually, and, you know, maybe it was induced by some incidents and stoppages from cautions, but it was one of those races for a little while where you kind of semi-lose track of everything that's happening. You're not certain who's on what strategy, who's doing what, who's truly where, and yeah, I think it was made cool by a few different things. I think having, you know, Palou and Kirkwood charging from the back made it pretty cool, seeing them trying to get through the field and having quite a number of drivers recovering from the start. Really, you had underdogs up and thriving a little bit, big hitters that were struggling. It had all the ingredients, really, for a really good road course race, which we haven't really seen particularly brilliant road and street course races in recent times. So yeah, it was good to see. Good to see it properly kind of in the balance for the win. I think it was almost a stark reality check of just how much Palou had made things a little bit predictable, because it did feel very different having people kind of fighting for a win on a road course like that. And yeah, to sprinkle it all off, we had aggro during the weekend as well, quite a bit of it. So what was traditionally, or what has been traditionally, one of the flattest weekends is kind of just the anticipation of what's to follow, kind of became far from that, which was good fun.
Yeah, like really, really fun weekend. And like at the end, I thought the battle between Malukas trying to aim for his first win, Lundgaard trying to get his first win at Aaron McLaren, that was a really awesome battle. I mean, forgotten all of this, Graham Rahal got his second podium in 3 races now, which is pretty unbelievable form continuing that. RLL once again turned up very strong. A good day for Joseph Newgarden, incredible recovery drive for Scott Dixon, a first top 10 for our good mate Louis Foster. So I mean, there are storylines literally up and down the entire order. It's one of those races where if you kind of just didn't really have a problem, you were going to bag yourself a good result, as we saw in a lot of cases. And yeah, really fun, really chaotic. If you have a hardcore allegiance to some driver, you probably had an absolute nightmare of a weekend, because a lot of people did. Funnily enough, it hasn't really changed the championship complexion at all. I'm pretty sure Palou's actually opened up his gap even more after the race, which is just amusing. But yeah, I mean, we have a lot to debrief in this one, so bonkers. But let's start off with Christian Lundgaard, obviously taking that first win at Aaron McLaren, as we said, and I think we both agree, we've said this for the last 18 months, it's been a very, very, very long time coming for Christian Lundgaard. I don't know how many podiums he's up to now, probably 8 or 9 of McLaren, where he hadn't stood in the top step of the podium. It was always Palou was the one who would fend him off. But I mean, Palou got onto strife a little bit as we get on to a little bit later, and just the really mature, assured drive we keep on seeing for Christian Lundgaard. Executed when it needed to be done. He qualified a little bit better, which he kind of has said before was maybe a little bit of his downfall in some races, but qualified much better here. And just raced superbly on Saturday. Did exactly what he needed to do, as we see so often on the road courses. Obviously capped off with an outstanding move around the outside of turn 4 on David Malukas. It was another fine drive for Lundgaard. And he is probably the second best racer on road courses by some distance now from what we've seen. It was a really sure drive once again. And this has certainly been a long time coming. There's no surprises that this result has finally come.
And he actually said as much in terms of him and Palou kind of being cut adrift from the field on road courses, that the 7 and the 10 are kind of, they have established themselves as the 2 best cars, both last year, obviously, with Palou podiuming. Is that a word? It's a word now. On every road course, Lundgaard, 5 out of 7 of the road course races on the podium. And yeah, his kick this year off in very, very similar vein. Obviously had the pit stop issue at Barber, which maybe didn't deny the win, certainly denied the chance to fight for the win in that final stint. And, you know, they delivered as a team on this occasion as well. But yeah, long time coming's the way to put this. I think he's almost become the bridesmaid of IndyCar in the last year in terms of coming so close so often, yet not quite getting over the line. Obviously, particularly on road courses, whereby Palou just always seems to be the obstacle. Obviously, Portland last year being the exception to that rule. But yeah, I mean, this was just the sort of win it felt like was entirely inevitable when the opportunity arose. And yeah, I think just brilliantly executed throughout, really. And he didn't have an ideal start to the race. He had to kind of avoid the melee in turn one, drop back a little bit, but just continually came back into his own. Was patient when he was pressuring Malukas for quite a while, a couple of stints really. And then when it finally came to making that race-winning move, kind of through turns 2, 3, 4, running side by side, it was genuinely exceptional racecraft. That was one of the best overtakes I think we've seen on a road or street course in a good while, because it was so aggressive and so decisive, yet so clean. And I think that goes for both of them as well. Obviously, Lundgaard pulling the move off, but Malukas for keeping it respectful there as well. But my God, he deserved this win. I mean, it's been a very, very impressive first year with Aaron McLaren. It was very harsh that he didn't come away from last year with a victory. He kept kind of alluding to unfinished business. I think both in terms of the near misses, it applies to the near misses that he had last year in terms of, I think he finished second 3 times, but also on the IMS road course, which was where his entire IndyCar journey began, with that trial run out with RLL in 2021. And then, he seems to qualify really well. He's been on pole in the front row countless times, really. Never just quite was able to get it over the line. So yeah, job done in multiple ways, really, and it's a real weight off his back. And dare I say, the floodgates are open now.
What was the stats running with? I think Lundgaard's last 10 podiums are all shared with Palou. So
yeah,
he's finally cleared that. So I can stop running with one of my favourite stats that was going on. So shame for me. I'm sure Christian Lundgaard's not going to be too bothered about it. But I mean, it's just absurd. We said many times in the last season it felt a bit unjust that Lundgaard hadn't got a win. And we were kind of first 5 races of the year, he'd got another 2 podiums, both again behind Palou, and it felt like, is it going to happen again this year? And he's finally broken that duck off his back, which I feel was important to do. I mean, there's really no better time of the year to do that, right before the Indy 500 in the month of May. And we know after this point the schedule just gets so busy. Like, you've got qualifying this weekend, obviously Indy 500 the weekend after, then you go to Detroit Gateways pretty soon after, and you have this really, really busy stretch. So it's a really good time to kind of start picking up momentum into a really, really critical phase of the season. Looking kind of wider picture, is Lundgaard in the battle for the championship picture? It feels like he's still a little bit too far off at this point. Ovals will still possibly let him down when we get to the later half of the season. And we saw Long Beach wasn't a great weekend. Obviously, he had a puncture there, but he wasn't running too competitively prior to that anyway. And it was a bit the same for last year for Lundgaard, where it was a bit inconsistent race to race. Like, the peak performance was certainly there, especially on road courses. We just need to see it all 18 races this year. And he's got a springboard to build off. I mean, it's not like he wasn't performing well before then, but I mean, as I said, I think momentum, a lot of drivers really speak about the value of it heading into May. And what we saw with Palou last year, didn't we? Obviously, winning on the road course and then winning the Indy 500. So can Lundgaard use that as a similar kind of impetus to really have a strong stretch of races when the schedule gets really, really busy?
Yeah, I think ovals are obviously key, and we spoke a lot about that last year and how we had this almost re-education on ovals after a tough few years in that discipline with RLL. And actually had a really solid 500 last year. I know Nashville at the end of last year was encouraging as well. I think qualifying third, obviously had the mechanical in the end, but that will be the key. But I think once he nails that, I think that's when he truly becomes a proper title package, because I think can he bring the fight to Palou? I mean, nobody seems to be able to bring the fight to Palou, but I think there's an argument that he could definitely be that closest contender once he manages to figure that out. And just on this weekend, I think, or particularly Saturday's race, I think it was kind of emblematic of kind of the disruptor role that he's played at Aaron McLaren since coming in, whereby obviously none of Pato O'Ward's teammates really challenged him. And yet Lundgaard's come in and been a real disruptor. He's eclipsed him on road courses, and it's hard to know how to categorize O'Ward's weekend, because I mean, he was having a nightmare through practice. He said like maximum he'd be able to qualify was 18th, and then he goes and puts it on the front row for the second race in succession, which was supremely impressive, really. But then gets wiped out by his good friend Felix Rosenqvist in turn one. It was clumsy from Rosenqvist. He owned up to the mistake. Shame between the best of friends, former teammates.
Rosenqvist has got a habit of just messing up awards races. There's a whole lineage of it. I think it's a bit of a running joke for some people, but there's a whole lineage of Rosenqvist messing up awards races, which is getting amusing.
Yeah, but it was interesting from that point, because you saw Dixon made the recovery, still finished 6th, and even when Palou and Kirkwood were shoved to the back because of the ill-timed caution and not coming into pit, they still made their way back into the top 10, Palou into the top 5, and O'Ward didn't make any progress.
Well, O'Ward got hit by Rob, but that seemed quite tyre to tyre. But obviously, you don't know if that's got any kind of structural impact. But he was on kind of that really bizarre, that huge fuel save at the end, which ultimately we saw kind of people coasting past him, but you were kind of like, okay, that's fuel saving. But he was running a very similar strategy to Kifford Simpson. Simpson ended up 12th, O'Ward ended up 18th. So I don't know what's happened there.
I mean, it's not as they say in the States, apples to apples comparing O'Ward and Lundgaard's race, because O'Ward was obviously put very, very much into the back foot. But where everyone else was making that progress, he seemed to... I mean, late in the race, it just seemed like, even after it seemed like maybe he was out of the fuel save, was still just getting swallowed up by cars you would definitely not expect him to get swallowed up by. So that was a bit of a strange one, especially when you look at, teammate Nolan Siegel in the top 10 as well, which was... more signs that maybe he's starting to build a little bit of momentum. Whether it's enough, not sure. But I just think it's maybe a little bit emblematic, whether kind of representative of O'Ward's true performance or not, of just the way in which Lundgaard has come in. And I mean, he's the first guy to win in the 7 car. He's only the 3rd winner for the team ever after Johnny Rutherford and Pato O'Ward. So pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, let's briefly mention Nolan Siegel. I think it's obviously worthwhile saying he's had a very difficult start to the year, and that's been widely publicised, but a much better run this time out. As I said, it's one of those races where if you didn't get into trouble, you'd have a good result, and he didn't get into any trouble and kind of picked off where others were. So again, a bit of a confidence boost heading into May. Obviously, this month is probably going to be the most important month into trying to solidify a future for himself. And we obviously know kind of the situation there at Aaron McLaren. So good result for him. Not something where I'd like, and ultimately he will still need more in the bigger picture, but I think it probably will give a little bit of a confidence boost for him heading into the month of May and the rest of the season. So good to see Nolan Siegel in the top 10 there. Obviously, he's first of the year. I mean, we rarely say this, but ultimately you kind of have to feel a little bit bad for Alex Palou of all people. And then this one absolutely dominated qualifying. I mean, he took pole by over half a second, which is unfathomable figures in IndyCar, really.
There is a little bit of a caveat to that Palou was keen to point out, was that O'Ward was the only other driver on new tyres, and O'Ward made a mistake on his lap. So the half a second margin was a little bit inflated. However, it still felt like Palou was the distance between Palou and second place often throughout the weekend. I mean, he topped every session, every segment of qualifying, every practice segment that he was in. And, often it was like he would have a 3 or 4 tenth gap anyway. And that would be the same that would cover the majority of the rest of the field.
If it wasn't a 5.5 tenth gap, if everyone was on new tyres, it might have been a 3.5 tenth gap at a 70-second lap. Yeah,
exactly. The gap was still going to be huge. I think he was probably trying to downplay it in his usual kind of humility. I'm not taking anything away. It was frankly an astounding lap. Even to have a 3/10 gap, which felt like it was common through the weekend on a track that's, just over 2.5 miles long, a 70-second lap is pretty bonkers, especially when, as I mentioned earlier, like everyone has tested and raced this track to death. So to find that margin is kind of mad.
Yeah. And then as he always does at road courses, once he took the lead, which obviously straight away being in pole position, didn't get caught up in the chaos behind him. And then he was kind of just building this gap ahead of Kyle Kirkwood. I mean, it was kind of 3-4 seconds, wasn't it, before we had the caution, which kicked everything off with Alexander Rossi, which we'll get into a little bit later. But Palou was effectively at the back of the field, and the caution straight after that with Rob, Ward, Rosenqvist and Simpson just kind of opened it a little bit, because you suddenly had loads of people pitting and then loads of people had retired. So it wasn't quite the recovery job people were making out to be, but he must have got to 15th or 12th. And he still had work to do from that point, of course, and he just some overtaking to do. But he was just slightly out of sequence, which made it a little bit difficult. But it was good to kind of give him a different challenge of fighting for the field, which is maybe something he's not so good at, judging off what we saw there at the GP. So I mean, at the end of the day, though, he still did a very good job to recover a top 5 finish. Like on a day he could have easily been well outside the top 10, still extend his championship lead. And I mean, top 5 is just inevitable in the top 5. It's just like the wins are inevitable, but now if it was even on a day which goes about as wrong as it possibly can for Palou, he still comes out with a top 5 finish.
I think you've been a bit harsh there, to be honest. I mean, he was literally at the back of the field and he's finished 5th. I mean, it's
but I'm saying the caution straight after meant he wasn't at the back, and you've recovered about 10 places from that.
I would have still backed him to possibly get into that position anyway, to be quite honest, given the buffer I think he actually ended up having back. The whole ordeal was a little bit confusing because I think Palou and Kirkwood, they obviously we'll speak about this once we've finished on this segment, but I think they must have assumed the pits had been closed because Rossi's car was in such a kind of precarious position, because I don't know why else they wouldn't have pitted unless they'd already passed it, but I don't think they had. I'm not entirely sure what actually
people behind them pitted. So
yeah, I'm not sure, but I don't know. I can't cast judgment. I don't think it was a mistake from either of them. I think it will have literally just been pure misfortune or misreading of the situation. But yeah, anyway, I guess it kind of just speaks to the level that Palou's set, that like you can get screwed, still finish in the top 5, and you kind of still look at the weekend as like, oh my god, Palou finished 5th. It's like that feels like a letdown or like bad weekend, because I mean when you look at last year, like he on the podium 13 times in the 17 races, so pretty rare that you don't see him on the podium.
Right, so he's 4 at 6. So he's got to get to match last year. He's got to get 9 in 12. That's pretty tough.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it was good fun trying to. I think a lot of drivers were giving him a lot of respect, knowing how quick he was when he was trying to get through the field. But nonetheless, it was fun to kind of see him, with his elbows out a little bit on the back foot. I think it's just not something we see that often because. Again, you make your own look, and it's at this point not coincidence that they seem to avoid all of the misfortune. And yeah, I think Lundgaard said something along the lines of it was the most satisfying thing all day to see the 10 team have something not go their way. So yeah, that was good fun. And ultimately, Palou recovered more than Kirkwood, Kirkwood had I don't really know how he got up to second at the start. I think he obviously just kind of avoided the mayhem, and that's all it really took. But yeah, then Palou was not burning the push to pass as much as Kirkwood was, which was kind of probably the cause of the disparity in their progress. Then Palou kind of tries to pit early out of traffic. Kirkwood responds. And yeah, another botched pit stop from Andretti. And, 1 or 2 times you can forgive as a mistake, but this has been happening for several years across that team now. And in a title battle, which, Kirkwood is in, at the end of the day, he's still only 27 points behind Palou. You can't be having that. And it probably has cost Kirkwood maybe a top 5 finish, maybe beating Palou, maybe gaining back on Palou. And yeah, it's become a bit too repetitive, and it's screwed what would have been. Kirkwood started 9th, was up in 2nd. He's ended up finishing 9th, which, okay, still a good recovery given he was at the back, but yeah, we ended up just getting jammed in several positions and quite a margin behind Palou because of that one error. And even if it cost you 5 seconds in the pits, it can cost you a lot more on track when you end up getting, just stuck there. So Andretti needs to fix up in that department if Kirkwood is to seriously challenge, because he is still very much in the game at the moment.
Right, you mentioned earlier of Christian Lundgaard that he's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I think we need to start applying that to David Malukas. It feels like he's been too close too often. And now Lundgaard's relieved himself of that crown. I think Malukas might be the one who's picking it up, because it feels like that first win is so close, but every single time something happens to take it out of his grasp. Obviously, a 2nd place there. Took the lead after Palou had all his troubles, and obviously all the troubles at the start, which meant it looked for a long time he was kind of sitting pretty, but it was obviously quite clear that Lundgaard was closing the gap on him and he would have been in a little bit of trouble. But nonetheless, equals his obviously career best result, obviously, and that's still a very, very strong result. We've said this all year about Malukas. The way he goes around his business is so impressive. He's qualifying superbly. I mean, I can't remember the last time he was outside the fast six. He's qualifying the fast six pretty much every single race at the minute. And it's not like he falls off from there. He's racing really, really well. He feels like he really maximizes the result every single weekend, like he did once again. And you compare him to how his two teammates are getting on, and it's really impressive. It makes it all the more impressive when you see how his teammates are getting on. Yes, Newgarden had a bit of a better day, but McLaughlin was kind of nowhere once again. And he's the only driver in that team who's performing week in, week out. Top 7 all the last 5 races obviously probably would have been the same should he have not had that tyre issue in St. Petersburg. So, I mean, once again, yes, no victory, and it will obviously come, and you'd think at some point in the season the way he's driving, but you just have to be so impressed with what David Malukas is doing currently.
And I mean, he kept saying it was fortunate that he was in this position, but regardless, this was above and beyond his best performance on a road and street course. I mean, this was his first podium on a road and street course. So, yeah, very, very impressive. And I know people drew parallels when they made the signing to when they brought Newgarden on board. Similarly, a young driver with a lot of potential, quite marketable as well, obviously. And there are parallels there in terms of Malukas obviously being a proper force on ovals, arguably the best in the series, or certainly up there within the top 5. But now he's also showing that well-rounded, just level of consistency on every type of track. And I kind of had a few concerns about this sort of reliability. I thought this first year might be a little bit streaky, just going off what we saw with Foyt. Like, obviously, such pace, and he was qualifying really well, which he has translated over to Penske in this bigger environment, in this opportunity that he describes as a dream, but he continues to kind of relish the pressure and not get overawed by it, which I'm really impressed by. But what was happening last year was Sundays ended up being a bit scruffier, whether he was making mistakes or whether, I don't know, he just wasn't necessarily delivering. Yet to kick off this year, he's delivered pretty much every Sunday. Like, even when he had the tyre issue in St. Pete's, I think the job at damage limitation there was very impressive. And he could have been frustrated at getting off to a maybe suboptimal start there with that happening in the race, but just regathered himself for that fast flurry of races to start the season and got back on the horse and was great immediately. And he looked very comfortable when he was leading. Ultimately, didn't quite have the pace for Lundgaard, who, as we've said, is a very proven quantity now on the road courses. But yeah, just this level of consistency is supremely impressive when you look at his teammates, and over a decent sample size now, like multiple seasons, have really struggled to establish that sort of just consistency and reliable run of results. And Malukas has come in, and I mean, when you look at him in the championship, he's third. He's 52 points behind Palou. Newgarden is 23 points back. McLaughlin is already 96 points behind Palou. So he's been the top guy in this team already, which, for those who doubted this move, is quite the statement. I mean, he's just showing such maturity. He looks so measured on track. And yeah, I'm just really, really impressed. I say every week now, but this is, I don't think you can kind of undervalue the job that he's doing here, because this is a tall order to fill the boots of Will Power, and he's doing so really, really well so far.
He has been the best Penske driver in each of the last 5 races. The exception this year is McLaughlin and St. Petersburg. But if you actually look at where they're running, how they're driving, Malukas is pretty much the top Penske all of the races. I mean, the only results are different. Now, McLaughlin beat Malukas at St. Petersburg, but Malukas had at Long Beach, but Malukas had a much better weekend. Obviously, Newgarden got it over Malukas at Phoenix. Newgarden's run to 4th must have been the quietest run to 4th place I've ever seen. Was he even on the broadcast? Was he a ghost car? I didn't see him once. He
was the guy who punted Dixon in the first corner.
True,
not that it was his fault at all. It was just the massive checkup. But I mean, this feels like it's his best run on a road and street course in pretty decent amount of time. Maybe even, I mean, when you look at street courses included, since that St. Pete Long Beach run at the start of 2024 even. And
best road streets in St. Petersburg 2025. Best road course results since Portland 24.
Yeah, so a good while since we've seen this sort of run. I think it's a sort of day I'm not sure we saw at all away from the ovals last year, which, again, as we spoke so many times at that point, like, it wasn't always the onus on him, but just nothing going wrong, solid pace. Yeah, just what he needs to do, and he's 5th in the standings now. It's, I feel like at certain points at the start of the last couple of years, really, he's been already on the back foot in the standings, more like what we see with McLaughlin. I mean, he's the one that I harbour a few concerns about, because I think we backed him to really rebound more than anyone last year after, such a tough season. He just seemed so focused, so motivated, yet there's just been a lack of any of that real upturn.
I mean, it's very reminiscent of last year. Started very well up at St. Petersburg and has just been a bit nowhere since.
Like, not qualifying well. He was 9th in his group, failed to transfer, and he was kind of on the brink of the top 10. He'd made a few places up in the start carnage, and then was just a continued non-factor.
Well, he had front wing issues, didn't he? He had to replace his front wing, but I don't know what the cause of that was. Yeah,
that's a good point, actually. So that lost him a little bit of time. But again, like where you saw certain drivers recover or find their way back forward, he just seems to get stuck in that lower teens segment of the order.
Third finish outside the top 10 so far this season, which is, not the standards that we expect. I mean, it feels like, to me, the problems we saw Penske have last year haven't really fully been solved. Like, they're still not firing across all three cars at all. And I think maybe Malukas performing so well has kind of taken the attention off that a little bit. But ultimately, outside of Phoenix, neither McLaughlin or Newgarden have ran particularly well. Like, Newgarden and McLaughlin, to me, are now a complete non-factor on road courses over the last year and a half, and even street courses. Like, neither of them are qualifying very well. Neither of them are running in particularly good positions. Like, they're just a bit anonymous every weekend now, and you would never really predict even them to be in your top 5 nowadays, which is just bizarre.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think McLaughlin on street courses, I wouldn't put him in that category necessarily, but I do generally agree, and I'm not entirely sure why. Whether it is a package thing, because I know they've put emphasis the last couple of years on really trying to solve any issues on road and street courses. Obviously, with it's easy for there to be a gulf between that and their oval form, because their oval form is so spectacular, but there is still clearly a gulf there. So, yeah, interested to kind of see what the cause of that is and just how it progresses, really, because especially from McLaughlin's point, already being, near enough 2 race wins behind the championship lead after 6 races. This is a huge May for him, because obviously he's got a big
but it can't go much worse than last year, can it?
Well, bloody hope not, for his sake.
Lost in all of this, as I said at the start, is Graham Rahal. He got a second podium of the year, and people aren't even mentioning it. It's like, Graham Rahal was hurt again. But credit where credit's due to Graham Rahal. Like, we all knew heading this weekend that RLL would be good at the road course, because they have been at the last 3 or 4 years and had unbelievable pace here, which they can't seemingly translate to anywhere else. So it's always an important weekend for them to really take advantage of the pace they have, because they know this is going to represent their best result of the year, as we saw with Louis Foster and, for a long period of time, Mick Schumacher. But once again, Rahal qualified 7th, not as good as Foster qualifying 6th, but come on those. You avoid the carnage, you're going to get a good result. And he had really good pace towards the end. Before he'd catch Malukas, didn't quite have enough for him at the end there. But I think this says quite a lot about Graham Rahal, that it proves Barber wasn't a fluke. And maybe he has got a little bit of his mojo back. He's now 9th in points, but he hasn't achieved the top 10 standings in a couple of years. I think he's already beaten his top 10 total from last year, and we're just 6 races into the season. 2 podiums. Superb run of form for Rahal. And yeah, this must be such a great confidence boost. Yes, they were expected to be quick here, but it now seems they're quicker more than just the IMS road course every year, and actually getting the top 10 is no really longer a surprise for them. So obviously Indy's going to be particularly important for them, but again, credit where credit's due. He's driving really, really superbly, and his experience is really shining through. Yeah,
it's felt like the steadying of what was, I don't know, it's harsh to say this, but the steadying of a sinking ship, really, because he'd had 7 years in a row in the top 10 in the standings, and then I think since 21 has just regressed, and 18th and 19th in the last 2 years was, that's pretty poor, really. And I think that's what has really prompted people to start saying, I know, the kind of pile-ons of criticism and saying he was past it and, time to hang it up and retire or what have you. But he's really kind of biting back and fighting against that so far this year. And yeah, successive road course podiums, and neither of them really ever seemed in doubt. Like, he was there purely on pace. It's not taking any look at all. And on this, well, say not taking any look at all, maybe on this occasion, if Palou had been there, Kirk would have been there. It might not have been a podium as such, but still did what he had to do. They made the right calls, and yeah, they're just executing. And you're right, 4 top 10s already in 6 races is more than he managed in the entirety of last year. So yeah, very, very, very strong start to the season. And we actually had the opportunity to speak to Graham before the weekend. So here is his take on some of the increasing stability at the RLL team, and also how he defies criticism, which there is quite a lot of aimed at him, which I thought was a particularly insightful answer. Cheers, Dave. Hi, Graham. Just following up on kind of a few minutes ago, RLL have obviously seen quite a lot of change in recent years, but obviously Jay's had a full off season now. You've made some of these hires. So is there a sense of kind of more stability at the team now? And I guess just talk a bit about the importance of having that stability compared to kind of what there's been these last few years.
With Jay, it's also great, and we don't need to make a lot of changes and things. Honestly, I think we need to just we got to keep building upon the consistency and what we've started. And from there, just go and acquire and accumulate some other good folks. I think if we make RLL an attractive place where we can keep having the success or the beginning of success that we're having, to me, more and more folks are going to want to come work here. And there's teams that don't have the environment that we have. And so I think if we can bring some of those guys on, it's not that, as I tell Dad all the time, I don't think anybody here needs replaced. I really don't. I just think we need more. We need to just continue to add and get more good people and get more information and data, and things will get better.
And I know after Barbie, you kind of alluded to being aware of some of the BS and some of the criticism that you or the team have kind of faced in recent times. So I'm kind of just interested what sort of effect that has either on you or the group. And I guess from your side and the team side, like how do you rally around that and try and almost defy what people are saying externally?
I mean, Tim May asked earlier about the burden and everything else. The reality is, honestly, I don't think it matters what I do. That I'm always going to get those comments, because even after, we started on the front row, we're starting the top 3, 2 out of 5 races or whatever this year. If you go on my social media, all you're going to read is, "Oh, Graham can't drive, he's slow." And it's, no matter what you do in a person like my shoes, it's never going to be good enough. That's the reality. And I'm okay with that, because I don't, if I've been blessed with one thing, it's that I've been blessed with, a mindset and the ability to block out a lot of this stuff. I do know there are a lot of drivers that's not the case. They get wound up. They see a comment or whatever. And it's, the accessibility of the fan today is a blessing and it's a curse. In my dad's day, if they had a bad race, you weren't going to hear anything about it because it was probably written in a newspaper. And the reality was you weren't going to ever see that newspaper. Today's world is not that. Everybody has you at their fingertips. And so you have to be able to mentally put all of that aside and stick to the plan, stick to the focus, and the reality is we've had a strong start to the year, and we've been fast at a lot of places. We've had some great results. I believe this weekend is an opportunity for us, and that's all I'm focused on. We'll just keep pushing along. And I think everybody within my team knows, of my capabilities, and more importantly, go ask Will Power, go ask Scott Dixon, go ask all those guys I've raced wheel to wheel with. I would firmly believe that they would say very positive things about me. And those are the people and the opinions that matter. And so that's all I really focus on.
I have run some Graham Rahal stats during the press conference break. The first time he's got 3 top 10s in a row since 2021. So in 5 years. And it's the first time since 2020 he's had multiple podiums in the season. So very encouraging stats for Graham Rahal. And as we kind of expected, happened through across the rest of the team. Louis Foster finally a first top 10 for the third host of the show. We were saying, how is Louis gonna finished outside the top 10 this occasion. Then he locked up really badly when racing Palou and went off at turn 1, which we thought, that might cook his tyres, like has been a common theme. But no such problems this time. As we said, if you avoid the carnage, you're going to get a good result. And it was pretty comfortable top 10. He didn't finish 10th. We finished well inside the top 10 this time. So good to see our good friend Louis Foster finally in the top 10. It has been a very, very long time coming. And hopefully this is going to be the first of plenty top 10 finishes.
Yeah, I'm glad it was I'm glad it was an emphatic enough top 10. It wasn't just like a backdoor 10th place because someone crashes in front of him or something. It was a genuine on merit, very much deserved it. I think it was the first time we've really seen a race from him where he managed any drop off that might happen. Even after the lockup, like he lost a little bit of ground, but he was losing ground to Alex Palou. So like you can't really say much about that. And he steadied the ship, could have derailed his race, but really just kind of got back on the horse and just steady. It was strong, qualified well, qualified the best of the team. Actually, it wasn't quite the qualifying form we've seen from RLL at the Indy Road Course, 6th and 7th, which is still pretty good going really across the two cars. Dan is doing something off screen that we'll discuss, many people, and even Mick Schumacher was running well. Like he was in contention for a top 10 late on, and then pretty bizarre coming together with Santino Ferrucci, really. Looked like Ferrucci had, I don't know whether he checked up or there was somehow just a very big...
To me, it looked like he was fuel saving, but that could be me wrong. But Schumacher just plowed into the back of him.
Misread it and just rammed right into the rear and was given a drive-through penalty, and it was going to be a PB finish really in 12th, 11th, could have even made it 10th, really. So, that was a shame for Schumacher, who has transpired since Long Beach, or since the Open Test even, actually. He has some pretty serious damage to his wrist from the crash in St. Pete, so he's managing that, needs surgery after the year. So that's a bit of a bummer for this rookie season, really, that he's dealing with pain. He'd had a steroid injection before the GP, which is, that can't be easy for him to deal with, really. So, kind of in spite of that being really the first time I've seen him properly competitive in a race and kind of making moves was good to see. But a bit of a rookie misjudgment late. And I don't think it was anything like super egregious. I think it was purely just a misjudgment. But it was a shame because he ends up finishing 20th when he should probably have finished 8, 9, 10 positions higher.
I mean, he tested here, and that I think was quite clear that he seemed a little bit more comfortable heading to the weekend. Of course, we knew that because of the package that RLO had at this track. But I guess nonetheless, it is a bit of a confidence boost that he can compete for much better positions, and I feel like we are seeing him improve race to race this season. So I'm sure that's going to continue. Indy 500 is obviously a bit of a different beast, but after that, I'm sure we'll see him continue to make ground forward. Well, let's discuss the cautions, because we haven't had to do this for a couple of races, really, because all the cautions have been completely meaningless, or there haven't been any. So we have a lot to discuss this time. Obviously, started off with that whole lap 1 saga. I mean, it was a bit of a rookie error from Rosenqvist, really. Just got him too hot into turn 1. Unlucky to collect a Ward, and that obviously caused a chain reaction behind, as you said earlier, which caused Newgarden to go to Dixon. Collette must have been spun by somebody else in there as well.
I think Collette Dixon had kind of been spun by Newgarden, and Collette just kind of ran into Dixon and Rosenqvist, basically.
I mean, even before that, what happened with Renus VK? Because his front wing was coming off down the front straight, but we didn't really see why.
It was a very messy start. I think it was a bit of a slow start. Not that Palou did anything wrong, but I think some people jumped the gun and then checked up, and VK at the back on what was an absolutely honking weekend for JHR, by the way. He did well to salvage 15th in the end, to be honest, after all of that. Check up and had damage. Because you kind of saw some smoke and tyre smoke and contact smoke and all sorts. But then everything ensued into turn 1. It was, I don't know, Rosenqvist, it seems to be a very, very slow lockup. And it was unfortunate because I don't feel like you ever really see much like that from Rosenqvist. It was a bit of a rarity. He'd qualified very nicely again, really, after what had been a bit of a rocky start to the season, to be up there in 3rd again, kind of, marker of a bit of a reset and turnaround. But the race was a little bit of a disaster for him. But I thought it was particularly unfortunate for Collette to be stuck in that, to be honest. Made his first fast 12 and generally just looked to be having a really, really good weekend, and ultimately finishes 19th, which doesn't feel at all fair for the
He
pace
must have
that he
had
was
some
showing.
kind of damage after that as well.
Oh, I mean, it was a big hit really against two cars. I know these cars are robust, but something must have been wrong. Even Dixon's car, I think he'd said it was like kind of straight.
Yeah.
He wasn't. It wasn't. But then it just ended up prompting the most Dixon day ever, because it really doesn't matter what happens on lap one. He'll go and do something outlandish and still end up in sixth place.
I mean, on the VK thing, I think that the problem with this track in particular is the leader wants to go as late as possible, because otherwise you're going to be giving people such a great draft down the back straight. We saw with Di Francesco that one year when he went from 5th to 1st. You couldn't really do that any other tracks. We saw it in the Indy next race as well. You kind of just have to go as late as possible. Otherwise, you're just going to get jumped to the slipstream that you're giving people down the back stretch into a heavy braking zone. But yeah, I mean, the carnage at turn 1 was just obviously really unfortunate, and obviously, yeah, nothing much you can really do about that. That's just a byproduct of this track, like you get with Portland, for example. So it was a shame, because it would have been interesting to see how O'Ward ran. It would have been interesting to see how Collett ran, as you say. Rosenquist would have been interesting to see how he ran. It says here Foster was involved, but I don't quite know how. The report says he was involved, but it can't have been that bad. I think he went to the grass, but
did he maybe cut the corner or go into the escape road, or
possibly? Actually, I feel like he maybe went into the grass. We have to verify that.
Quite a few cars go into the grass.
There was so much going on, so yeah, that was a shame. But obviously, the real main talking point is the following caution when Alexander Rossi had a mechanical failure on the front straight. Should we just speak about Rossi's comments first of all on his actual issue himself? Obviously,
I was going to say
had some kind of had a hybrid issue. And I mean, his interview was quite remarkable. On the radio, he said thanks Honda in a very sarcastic tone, and then in his interview was saying, "I've been the victim of." I'm paraphrasing here, but the victim of a product that nobody was pushing for and nobody likes racing with.
A product we didn't ask for that doesn't improve the racing. So yeah, I mean, it's a known thing that Rossi absolutely loves the hybrid, and I think the thanks to Honda is pointing at the fact that they were kind of the biggest proponents of the system. And yeah, I mean, no notes on his comments really. I mean, it was a succinct but pretty splendid interview. I can't lie, both on the full course yellow situation, but also the hybrid. That is kind of what we've been saying. It does feel like it's not really improved the racing at all. It's been
apart from on short ovals, where the racing's been the best it's ever been.
Yeah, of course. But on road and street courses, it's really been to the detriment of it, and just. I don't think it's really added very much at all, other than a lot of weight.
That's the wrong way of putting it. I mean, I wonder what IndyCar are going to do. Like, a lot of people have been quite public about their dislike for the hybrid. That's team owners. We've had drivers on the show publicly say about how they don't like the hybrid, and it feels like nobody, maybe apart from the manufacturers, really want this at all. But I guess the problem is it's such an expensive project that you can't just say, well, actually, no, we're going to bin it off as of tomorrow. I mean, I guess what they're going to be waiting for is in 2028, we've got this new car where theoretically the hybrid should be integrated a little bit better. And I guess that'll be a bit more of a telling sign then. So we're probably going to have to put up with it until at least then. But I mean, yeah, we had the same talking point last year, really. I mean, it's a shame that people are being eliminated because of hybrid problems.
Yeah, agree. And it is in the plans for 28 in the new car, so nothing anyone can do about it, because it might be what's keeping some of these manufacturers around. Like, it seems to be a pretty important thing for Honda. So
yeah, but obviously the big talking point is IndyCar's deployment of the caution. Rossi obviously stopped on the front stretch. I mean, he was kind of really unable to move at all. It's not like he could link back to pit lane at that point. And there seemed to be a great deal of confusion, because IndyCar, through the local yellow, which the broadcast thought was a full course caution, and then IndyCar, like we've seen, very commonly Laguna Seca, kept the caution, delayed the caution in order to let the front runners pit. But as you said earlier, it's like they were confused whether they could pit or not, because they might have thought it was closed.
I don't know. I saw a tweet from Pelot actually saying they made the wrong call, but I don't know why they decided to stay out anyway, because it's obvious everyone's going to pit. So there was definitely confusion.
Anyway, yeah, there's some kind of confusion there, and obviously IndyCar left it ridiculously long for a driver who's sitting stationary on one of the fastest straights on the calendar, who obviously needs to get out of his car pretty quickly, because if he gets hit whilst he's stationary, well, that's going to be a very, very bad accident. So, I mean, you've probably all seen it, and I'm sure everybody's got the same reaction to it, but it's pretty shameful that this situation can even occur when there is a car stationing in such a fast section of track. It's ultimately incredibly dangerous for a driver to be sat there. Yes, he's out the way, but you just don't know what can happen, and you don't want to keep on trying this to keep the pits open and then end up having a situation where you do have the accident, which well, the really bad accident because somebody's stationary. And I can't believe this is not the first case of this. This is the third or fourth case of this. And yet it feels like nothing changes. And it's like, I don't think any driver prefers the pits being kept out for fairness, which by keeping it out makes it unfair. And that's sacrificing the name of safety there.
Yeah, I mean, it's unforgivable. Like, yeah, okay, there's a local yellow, but cars were still absolutely blowing past Rossi. And yeah, it's just a stupid rule, isn't it? And this feels like the kind of crescendo of that, because I feel like this has happened so many times. We have this talking point so many times. We have the same viewpoint every time. It's equally absurd every time. Yet somehow nothing's ever done to change it. And I think the drivers really need to put their voice forward and, kind of exhibit their power on this to get it changed. Because at the end of the day, and again, it feels like we're having the same conversation that we've had so many times, but safety is safety, and you can't play with safety. And ultimately, bad luck is part of racing. And even by keeping the pits open, you kind of indirectly disadvantage other people anyway. And the series role is ultimately to protect the drivers. And I think it's kind of mad, really, that this sort of thing can happen for a series that is so rightly fixated on safety in many other ways. And ultimately, you've got a new officiating board in place. This was a very bad look, regardless of this notion that they should keep the pits open. This was a dangerous enough situation that there should just have been an immediate caution, and they've got to get this sorted, because it can't. We just can't afford for it to happen again. It's, are we waiting for something bad to happen? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and as you alluded to, every team and strategist knows the concept of the danger zone. And they know that if you don't pit at a certain point when everyone else is pitting, you are vulnerable to a caution coming out. And ultimately, it's completely unfair to the drivers who pit before to try and get an advantage that they're not benefiting from that because they're pitted early in case a caution came out. It just baffles me every single time. And I hope this is, as you say, coming to crescendo of it, where it's, okay, that is too ridiculous. We're going to have to put the caution out straight away. I mean, there was those, I remember a bit earlier in the race, we had those two bits of debris lying around, which people wanted to bring a caution out forward, which again felt a bit far-fetched. One was off the racing line, so it didn't really need to be, but there was that one heading into turn 7 where it was kind of just in the braking zone. IndyCar really needs some kind of solution of a VSC equivalent or a slow zone or something for these small issues, because like we saw in Long Beach, that phantom caution for that bit of debris, which was run over anyway, was absolutely ludicrous and just changed the race for the worse. But it also feels you can't have bits of debris on the racing line waiting to be thrown into the air by somebody and making it even worse by having 100 bits of carbon on the track rather than just one. So the same applies, I guess, to kind of Rossi's situation. Ultimately, you probably could have some kind of VS. I guess he's a bit harder really to get behind the wall, actually, in fairness. But there needs to be some kind of solution, I think, to slow cars down temporarily so that debris can be removed off the track. Because if we had a caution out for that tiny bit of debris, that would have been absurd to me. But at the same time, you can't leave it out there. So what do you do?
Because then there's also the issue, and Graham Rahal alluded to this in the press conference afterwards, that these yellow periods also take way too long. We end up being under yellow for a very long time for stuff that might be quite small. I think Long Beach was, I don't know, how long were we yellow for at Long Beach?
Long time.
Yeah, I think it felt like a long time anyway. So that's probably a solution. It works well in World Endurance Championship, having slow zones. I know that's often a thing on the bigger tracks like Le Mans, for instance. But I think that could be a solution. Or as you say, a virtual safety car that negates the need to bring out the pace car or safety car, whatever we call it over in the States. Don't know. What do we call it in the States? Is it the pace car? Is it the pace car that comes out to act as
I play too much iRacing, so it's pace car.
Do we still call it the pace car when it's on a caution? Because the European mind, we just call it the safety car, don't we? But yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, should we do some... Actually, no, let's not do a running order. We've got another caution to go over because we had the one pretty much straight after we went green for that one, which was the really messy one at turn 13 where Rob hit O'Ward, which kind of half spun and which checked Simpson up, which saw Rosenqvist fly to miles and back. It also says Armstrong was involved in that, but I don't quite know how.
Well, I think this is a good time to just quickly mention one of the bits of aggro because I saw it theorized because basically there was an ordeal after the race that was filmed by Tony Donahue filmed it, Marshall Pruitt filmed it, where Grosjean was having a confrontation with some very, very big and scary looking members of Marcus Armstrong's Meyer racing team. And words along the lines of, I'm going to punch him, were uttered. And I think Grosjean since called Marshall Pruitt to say, he was only joking or whatever, but I think they maybe Armstrong's team took it literally or whatever. But Grosjean was furious, and there is leading into this collision that caused Rosenqvist to look like he's about to go headed for the moon. Armstrong was seen off track, and there was actually, if you look at the video, another car off to the left. So there's a theory that actually that's where he had contact with Grosjean. Grosjean went off, maybe sustained... I don't know, because Grosjean seems to sustain damage earlier in the race anyway, didn't he? So maybe that wasn't it. Because Grosjean was running really well, and then he somehow just ended up in the pit. So was that in that... Maybe that was in that predicament then?
Possibly.
Because that was... This race felt like it took forever to get to the halfway point. That Rosenqvist caution was only on lap 28.
If you haven't seen the still, by the way, of Rosenqvist's car, I'm not joking. It is literally at this angle. It's now my Twitter header because I love the picture so much.
But maybe that is then when Grosjean ended up in the pits with damage.
Probably.
Because so maybe that was him. I don't know because I genuinely am forgetting when that happened.
Yeah, in that Rosenqvist got quite annoyed at Simpson, but I don't really see what Simpson.
No, but I think Rosenqvist probably hadn't seen. I don't think he'd seen Rob basically torpedo O'Ward. Which was a pretty clumsy mistake in itself, and I feel like we've seen that a few times in the braking from him. But yeah, Simpson was just avoiding Rob and O'Ward having their little contretemps. And yeah, then it was quite... must have been like a perfect storm that meant that Rosenqvist just vaulted completely over the front of Simpson's car. And yeah, I mean, it was a bad day for Rosenqvist too. Congratulations to him and his wife, who became parents, and I think let's just say Rosenqvist was a bit tired, and just an unfortunate weekend. Well,
the good news for him is that it was born a bit early because the child was expected to be at kind of qualifying weekend, and you don't really probably want the child on qualifying weekend, so it's a much better time for them to have it. So yeah, congratulations as well. But yeah, I'm sure for him that's quite nice that you don't have the stress of a child being born during Indy 500 practice.
And also, like, he can have a bad day like this and go back to his newborn child. So,
yeah,
nice.
There we are. Right, let's do some running order. Lundgaard, Malukas, Rahal, Newgarden, Pelego top 5. Dixon's recovery drive got him to 6th ahead of Louis Foster in 7th. Really great run from Dennis Hauger in 8th, which, like many other people, has gone under the radar. A second top 10 of the year. Started down at 24th as had an excellent recovery drive, and obviously his best IndyCar career result to date. So another good friend of the show, another great result there for Dennis Hauger. So congratulations to him.
Yes. Been a quiet one since St. Pete, really. I think naturally in a rookie year, but yeah, this was not totally sure how he got there. Kind of stayed out of all of the.
That's it. Stay out of trouble.
Made up places at the start.
We've got some really interesting kind of standings at the minute. Hauger's at 15th somehow, which feels
because I think
high.
even though he's not been a major factor, like he's not had bad results.
That's
like
it.
He's been there or thereabouts.
He's only had one, which was at Barber, where he's 23rd. Every other finish is in the top 16. So. Yeah, no, good run with Dennis Hauger. Coke was 9th there to Siegel in 10th. Not quite Armstrong ability today, but although maybe it's not an Armstrong ability day because Siegel was in the headlines for the Grosjean beef. So
it was almost Armstrong ability because
Armstrong ability.
He was 20th, had the beef, which I think there was a random Fox interview that appeared on social media about it as well, and that's where Armstrong said that Grosjean had offered a bit of a fist fight.
But yeah, which there's no chance he's beating Armstrong in a fist fight, I don't think.
Do you not think?
No, I don't think so. Armstrong was like jacked. Is he not?
I don't know. Yeah, he is, but I also see him as like the least confrontational person ever. Like he's too chilled and.
But when it comes to it, I think he can do it.
I just think Grosjean's too fire in the belly.
Oh right, okay, interesting.
I just think he's like way too he get way too psyched up and just absolutely destroying.
We've seen this quite often with Grosjean, where he just gets really annoyed at people. Like he just goes really over the top with his anger at people. Isn't like we've seen this a couple of times before in his IndyCar career. Anyway, Simpson was 12th ahead of Power in 13th. Obviously, Power started last, tried to go on a bit of a funky strategy, which required quite a significant fuel save, and then he had that bit of a disaster. He was coming out of the pits for his final stop, which gave him a drive-through penalty. I mean, it would have been interesting to see where he came out. How many seconds did you use from a drive-through? 25, maybe?
Yeah, that's what I had in my head.
So they probably would have finished about in the 6th to 8th.
He would have finished around Dixon. I thought it was a really good drive, to be honest. I mean, he was making very long stints work without actually losing too much pace as well. And yeah, man, another seeming error of his own. I know some of the misfortune he's had so far with Andretti hasn't been of his own doing, but it's just something else after something else after something else.
It feels like every single race there is just a small error which just costs him so badly. Like, I mean, Arlington remains his only top 10 finisher of the year. He's 14th in points, so it's behind Ericsson in points. So yeah, not great.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, qualifying as well. I mean, this is one of his strongest tracks. He's an absolute master at this place, and he was 25th on pace.
Yeah,
like there was nothing wrong. It was just on pace, which I guess is a slight indictment of Andretti's package on road courses, which admittedly Kirkwood seems to be getting a heck of a lot more out of. And he qualified 9th, felt like he could have been in the fast 6 if it wasn't for some traffic, I think. So yeah, quite a big disparity there.
So Verratti ended up 14th after being spun by Schumacher. Vico recovered to 15th, and then you have all these people who had different troubles. So McLaughlin, Rabo, Ward, Collette, and Schumacher, and then Grosjean, and then retirements. Ericsson had a mechanical failure. They said why in the broadcast, but I've forgotten, if you remember.
I think I'd gone to the toilet and came back just as they were saying it. So
okay, well, Ericsson had some kind of failure. It wasn't a spectacular weekend anyway, so nothing really much to talk about there. And then we had Rosenqvist, obviously, fly to the moon and back. That ended his race. And we had Rasmussen and Rossi. Rasmussen had a mechanical failure, obviously, quite early on.
No. Rasmussen. Oh, wait.
Yes, he did. He was in the pits, remember?
He had damage, though.
Was it damage?
Damage? I think he had. I don't know. I don't know if it was on lap 1 or because he obviously. Do you remember seeing him go off track on the first restart? It looked like his nose was quite.
Yes.
Not how it should be. I don't know what happened. We never actually saw that.
No. Point on Rasmussen hasn't finished in the top 10 once this season. He's 23rd ahead of Schumacher and Robb in the standings.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously...
if he wins Phoenix, he's suddenly in 14th or something.
But still, 14th in that region with a win. I am a little bit concerned about his road and street form.
I mean, his road and street form has never been that superb.
No, exactly.
But because he's so good in the ovals, we kind of forget that a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
and that's why it's a tough balance in terms of like, I guess if you're a team owner trying to hire a driver, do you go with someone who's spectacular on ovals and will contend for a win every time? But the trade-off is they're not particularly great on road and street courses. Or not saying he's not particularly great, but not as strong. It's an interesting balance, and there's quite an imbalance there at the moment.
I mean, he's only got in his career 2 top 10 finishes on road and street courses. 3. Yeah, sorry, no, 2. Yeah, he's only got 2 in 2.5 years. Isn't it ironic? His first year he did road street, but not over.
Yeah. Yes. I guess it was genius from Ed, wasn't it, to put him in the car for those final few and really find out the. I was going to say the splendor. That's a bit of a Ed Carpenter racing.
Special though.
What's the word for when a word is spelt differently but sounds the same?
Oh, I don't know.
But it's whatever one of those is.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, right. We have top 3 drivers of the weekend. I think Pelot's still my number 1. because, I mean, he deserved to win. Lundgaard would be my number 2. And my number 3 is, it's tough. You got Malukas in there, Ray.
Mine's below Lundgaard, Malukas.
I'd probably go Malukas, to be fair. Yeah, but there's a lot of people. Rahal probably is within a shout there. Someone like Foster could be within a shout.
You're right. Yeah, so, I think they'd be the top 5.
Unsung hero. There's a lot this week. We have very many unsung people to choose from this week.
Dennis Hauger.
That's mine. Louis Foster.
Yep, I think that they're the 2.
Yeah, Louis Foster. Yeah. It's quite nice to see him with a comfortable top 10 finish, isn't it?
Is our unsung hero ever anyone that's not in like that 5th to 10th range?
But he can't be. You can't have an unsung heroes outside the top 10. Well, to be fair, Graham Rahal probably could be the unsung hero, to be fair.
Yeah, it's fair. It is fair.
But you could have someone like, I don't know, Schumacher could have been an unsung hero if he didn't punt Archie. So we didn't mention this kind of leading into the weekend. Obviously, we've had a couple of interviews. Jacob Abels last week, caught up with him for the first time in a while, so that's a really good listen. We caught up with Mike Marini after the Open test. We caught up with Conor Daly the week before that. So since Long Beach, we've had 3 interviews. We haven't really had a chance to pick up on news, but they're all 3 really good interviews in their own right. So they're definitely worth listening to. But Long Beach, after the race, there was a bit of a controversy in regards to push to pass, where it had been activated on the restart by accident for IndyCar. And 12 drivers had used it on that restart and for varying amounts of time. I think the only one that made a position change was Ferrucci, who got past Armstrong and vice versa, but because they used a similar amount, IndyCar didn't penalise them for it. But obviously, this is very controversial because of what happened in 2024 at St. Petersburg, where Newgarden and McLaughlin were disqualified on the basis they weren't using push to pass, despite not gaining a meaningful advantage when they changed the code to use it on restarts. Long Beach saw Pelot use it, amongst others. I think Rosenqvist was another one to use it. But
I've got the list here if you want me to.
We can go over the list, yeah. Let's go over the list.
So McLaughlin, Siegel, Simpson, Pelot, Malukas, Ferrucci, Rahal, although Rahal pushed it for 0.0 seconds, which he was a little bit bemused by, so I don't know why he's on the list. Grosjean, Foster, Rosenqvist, Armstrong, and VK.
So they all agree that nobody gained a kind of meaningful advantage from this. But it obviously created a bit of a fallout because of what happened in St. Petersburg. And it left a bit of an awkward feel after the race. However, IndyCar's reaction was they're going to make a rule change, which is you can now use it on restarts. You can't use it on the start, but after you start finish line, you can use it at whatever point you want. And it wasn't quite clear if IndyCar had the system disabled before the alternate start finish line for the first time. It feels like they have, but if the code is changed so that you can use it at that point, and IndyCar mess up again, you get penalised because of it, which sounds like a bit of a bizarre rule. But anyway, that obviously created a rule change, which is created a rather interesting dynamic, which I guess we'll get onto in a minute because we've got other things to discuss on this topic. But it's quite a big error on IndyCar's part to allow that to happen in the first place. And I guess what the problem is the precedent set by St. Petersburg, but at the same time, so many people use it, you can't disqualify 12 drivers for using push to pass. So, and as we'll get onto, the press conference after with the top 5 drivers before the weekend caused like a little bit of an argument as to what you could and couldn't do with it.
You do say it's a big error. It was some sort of glitch in the coding where the system basically is designed to send single messages to cars or something. I didn't really understand it. It was quite confusing, but instead it basically got overloaded and push to pass basically just push to pass disabled, which meant it remained enabled. I think there's 3 talking points on this that we should go over briefly. There's the change to the rule where it's now allowed in restarts, as you mentioned, the fact that the drivers were not penalised and they were named, and also the optics of it. I think let's first just discuss the change, the change in the rule. I think my fear in enabling push to pass on restarts was that just everyone would use it and there'd be no impact at all on the racing. But actually, I thought the restarts were pretty good in Saturday's race. Like, I think you had to be kind of strategic as to where you deployed it on the lap, because the maximum amount you have through the race remains the same. The maximum amount you can deploy at once remains the same. And, I think it does add an extra layer of strategy in terms of how you can serve it for crucial moments, like in laps, out laps, if you're having to defend for the lead, fight for the lead, that kind of stuff. We still saw Malukas, for instance, burning it like crazy. And ultimately, I think he ran out quite a bit before the end. And I think the other thing of this, and Rahal mentioned this, it means they don't have to police it anymore by just not having it, by just having it available on restarts, which I don't want to call it lazy, but I mean, we've had so few issues in the past. I don't see why it would suddenly just be a problem. Like, it just didn't feel like a rule they really needed to change, because like, okay, there's been this malfunction, but this is the first time it's ever happened. They've changed the code to fix it, so it doesn't happen again. They've got extra like data engineers looking over it now and monitoring. So they've made these extra steps, yet they've actually just made those extra steps that they're making literally only apply really to race starts where it's disabled under green flag conditions. That's the only time it won't be on. So strange one.
I mean, on your point of restarts, I think it was quite interesting at the end, as you say, there was a lot of disparity about how much people use push to pass. And I guess it creates a strategy element with how much do you use it on restarts, especially in a caution field race where, yes, you could use it now, but if you have a late caution, you're suddenly in trouble. So I guess that creates a little bit of a more strategy element to it. I do think this is quite a good track for it, though, is what I would caveat with. It's got two very long straights, heavy braking zones, hence run another opportunity into turn 11 or 12, turn 12 to overtake. So there's good overtaking opportunities, which you can utilize push to pass for. If we get to somewhere like Road America, Mid-Ohio, where the overtaking opportunities maybe aren't as clear cut, I think that would be quite an interesting comparison, is to see whether it works with restarts or not. This is quite a favourable track to test those conditions based on the track characteristics, in my opinion. But you're right, restarts seem a bit more frenetic, and I kind of like the opportunity that drivers had there. I think Carl Kirkwood raises as a concern where drivers would just save to the end in case there was a late caution, which maybe would detract from the racing at the start of the race, because you don't want to get to a late caution and have nothing left, because you'd be a sitting duck on those kind of restart laps. But obviously this didn't happen, so we have no idea how that would have panned out. But I don't know, I'm indifferent. Like, I'm like the fact they're trying something different. I don't think it's going to change things too heavily, but I do agree that it's a bit of a lazy solution to a problem IndyCar created themselves.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Next talking point on it really is the decision to name them and also not penalise the drivers. I think on the former of those points, I do respect the accountability from the new independent officiating board, IndyCar officiating, to actually name the drivers. And I think just the general messaging from IndyCar officiating has been pretty good, pretty transparent so far. So that's something they've got going for them. I think also it was absolutely right not to penalise the drivers, because by the rule, or the absence of a rule, it was not their error. Like, it wasn't their responsibility. If push to pass was on, they could use it. Like, and the burden was placed on the series. And I don't blame the drivers for trying to push those limits, really. I think updating the responsibility so that if a malfunction happened now where it was supposed to be unavailable, it reduces grey areas. Pato O'Ward particularly was a proponent of that kind of argument of morals versus rules, and kind of having grey areas that made it a bit unclear. I mean, ultimately, hopefully this new rule is not something that needs enforcing. I don't know what you think on really mostly the point of the fact they came out and named them. Was that fair?
Well, I mean, the thing is, once it got released after the race, I think you had so many drivers saying, yes, I used it, yes, I didn't use it, which meant people were trying to work out who didn't use it anyway, which I think was good to kind of have that transparency. And I think the problem we've had with IndyCar officiating in recent years before the new board is we didn't have that transparency of what's going on. Like Penske, the Indy 500, for example, as they were pulled out the queue. Well, why? I think what needs to be made clear, in case anybody's wondering, is the difference between this and St. Petersburg 2024. So Team Penske cheated by manipulating the code or changing their own team's code.
Well,
I think to do that.
We still don't know if they did intentionally cheat.
But whether they did it or not, they cheated by.
Yeah. I don't want to reopen that kind of
code. Yeah. Yes. We're not going to. But they cheated ultimately, whether deliberately or not, by changing their own team's code, which enabled them to use it. Whether McLaughlin new car uses deliberately or not, doesn't really matter because the team overrode the code so that they could. This is different because no one overrode the code as the IndyCar's error. But I guess what is interesting when you look back at St. Petersburg is now the excuse of I used it out of habit, even when it wasn't available, suddenly doesn't seem such an invalid excuse as it was seen as at the time.
Yeah, that was the final point I was going to kind of bring up was the optics of it all. That Newgarden got a heck of a lot of criticism from fans, and I feel like even fellow drivers kind of this villainizing of him as kind of being a cheat for using it. But this just proves that the vast amount of drivers would do exactly the same. And Kyle Kirkwood said as much. He would absolutely do it if he knew it was available. And this is where it kind of all kicks off a little bit, was that O'Ward said that he was told it was available. So teams must know, but he decided not to. So I guess that's why a rule kind of needs to be enforced to make sure there's none of that kind of, I guess the morality element of it, really.
But in fairness to IndyCar, I think they made it quite clear, IndyCar officiating, is that if they didn't make any penalties because there was no position changes. So if there was a position change, by the wording of what they said, they would have been willing to make a change should somebody have gained an advantage over somebody else because they used push to pass. Ultimately, we won't know because that scenario didn't happen. But the way they worded it was, I think Ferrucci got past Armstrong, but they allowed that because they used similar amounts.
Yeah,
and that's saying if someone used a dissimilar amount, maybe they would have just changed their positions around him.
I'm not certain they would have done that, to be honest. I think they were just making a point that was the only position change. But yeah,
I mean, we'll ultimately never know, as you say. But I think I interpret that as, they reviewed it to make sure there was nobody gained a particularly unfair advantage by doing so, and ultimately no one using it overtook people who weren't using it.
Yeah, ultimately, I think Newgarden's owed an apology from those who villainized him for this, because it's something that all the drivers are trying to do because they're, cutthroat winners and want to push the limits. So, yeah. But I guess rather than just trying to explain away all of there were two kind of, butting of head scenarios between really O'Ward and Palou on the situation. First on Thursday before the race weekend, and then again on Saturday after qualifying. Basically just on all sorts of things about the kind of tweaks to the rules, some confusion initially over the fact that now the burden of responsibility is on the drivers if they were to use it at an unavailable point. Also just the idea of, the grey areas and people using it or not using it, or thinking it's okay to use it, thinking it's wrong or cheating, quote unquote, to use it. Rather than just try and explain, let's just play in those couple of clips, which you've probably seen on social media by now, but we will give you the chance to listen and watch them anyway. So here they are.
Can you repeat that about being penalized?
So they changed the rule for the start of the race.
Yeah.
That now the onus is on the driver. That
Is it?
So if you push the button and for some reason it's activated.
It's my fault.
No, you're allowed to use it.
Yes.
I think he's got it wrong. You're allowed to use it.
I don't know.
Not at the very start. On the
So
restart,
at the
you can't
start,
use it.
if IndyCar fucks up again and I press the button,
You get penalized.
I
think
get
that's what he's
penalized?
saying. So it is on for the start, but we can't push it.
It is not on until you hit the alt start finish line of the pack.
but he said that if I push it and it works because someone else does a mistake, it's my fault. Yes.
That's the way I read the rule.
Okay, I didn't read the rule. Sorry.
Did anybody read that rule? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that part.
I was reading it earlier and I didn't read it that way. So
Are we
Well,
are we talking about the new rule?
Yeah.
yeah,
So I thought the new rule
it's
is
gonna be active. It's gonna be active at
Where's
all
Kyle?
times.
Yeah, but
yeah.
he's saying that it's inactive. It's not active at the start. We're all in that same page. But he's saying that if we press it and it works because someone else does a mistake, we get penalized.
Sure,
That's the way I read it.
but that makes sense because
Does it?
because you're not supposed to be able to use it until the alt start finish.
Why isn't
on
it
the race
on
start?
Yeah, but
though?
is it on us?
Oh no, if
So this
okay,
is,
yes,
we
you're
haven't
saying
had
if
the drivers
IndyCar
meeting yet,
accidentally
so-
leaves it
Again.
on, yes.
Again, for the second time.
Thanks, Bob.
We should probably move the drivers meeting up to now.
We'll get Kyle in here to help.
Where's Kyle Novak?
I'll go.
here.
I am very surprised that only half of the grid used it. Very surprised.
Well, you guys must have an indicator because like all your cars used it.
No, Scott didn't.
No, I know, but the Shank
9
cars did. You guys did. The 8 car.
The 9 didn't use it.
He must have not seen that indicator.
Oh, okay. I pressed
See,
it.
he just.
I pressed it 3 times, and I'm surprised I didn't press it more. There's only 3 straight, so yeah, I don't know. I'm very surprised as well that they pinpointed at every single car that used it when it was not our fault. It was IndyCar's fault.
All right, let's set the record straight. Everybody would have used it if they known it was active. Like every driver would have. I wish I would have known it was on because I would have used it. So.
I got told.
You got told that
Yeah,
it's
I didn't
active
use
and to
it.
not use it.
No,
Why?
No or yes?
I did not use it.
Why?
But you were told it was on.
Well, because you know the rule, man.
Where's the rule?
The rule of, well, that's the problem why they changed the rule.
No, the rule is
it-
that it won't be active.
It does, yeah, but it
I
doesn't
would
say
use
that
it.
It doesn't
you cannot
say that
use
you will
it.
penalize.
I get it.
Oh,
No.
okay, it's a big difference.
No, I know. It does. It's not explicit that the drivers cannot use it if the software allows.
Okay, someone
get
in
it.
IndyCar fucks up and it's my fault.
No, I'm not saying it's your fault.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Because the thing is that if Rosenquist overtakes me and I lose the win, it's like, oh, we're very sorry.
no.
We're going to change the rule now.
No, like I get it.
And it's very different. I feel it's
I
very,
get it.
the confusion here, it's very different to what happened last year or 2 years ago. Was it last year or 2 years ago? 2 years ago
Year
where
and a half
somebody
ago.
else changed the code, but we're talking about someone not pressing a button or pressing the button, and it's not on us to know if it's active or not. I press it.
Well, I hope you got your answer somewhere there.
Yeah. What was the question again?
I'm just disappointed.
I mean, I think they clarified what what action is going to get taken in case it is like happy pushed. But I don't think there's really a scenario where it can be anymore because it's probably just going to be on all the time. So yeah, I can't wait for the scenario where it's like, oh, so someone had pushed the pass in the start. But who knows?
It's gonna be pretty rare for
Still-
sure, right?
Still makes, yeah, I mean, I still,
He's going to be today.
no, I mean,
That'd be good for me, so I can tuck behind him and just get towed up.
no, it's clear now, but I mean, you were saying it's a rule, man, on...
No, but the
But you
problem
know
was
you-
that it wasn't a rule.
Correct, but you were saying it was the rule.
Yeah, I think it was more of like a gentleman's agreement of
What?
Like, yeah. Like, come on, you knew.
What do I knew? That it was not enabled. Not
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you cannot use it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not enabled. Okay, that's it. End of the story. Gentlemen.
No. But you knew that we can only use it.
No. I knew that it was not enabled.
Uh-huh.
End of the story. If it's enabled because someone else does a mistake,
No. The reason why people didn't get penalized is because the screw up.
so there was no rule.
No, you went into the gray area and you got away with it.
Gray area.
Yeah.
What did the rule say? It's not going to be
No,
enabled
the
on
problem
restart.
was the rule didn't say anything.
So it's no gray area.
Yes.
How?
Because at the end of the day, the same action that Joseph got crucified for.
It was not Joseph's fault. It was the team fault. If the team is cheating,
No.
It's not because of the driver.
What do you mean?
The Joseph or the drivers did nothing.
If you
wrong.
know you're using it when no one else is using it.
I always press it. That's how I
What?
found. Yes.
Why? In case it works?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, maybe that's why I'm not winning races.
All right.
Nah, honestly, like the rule was not specific. That was the problem.
No. It was very specific. There's a new rule now.
The rule now is specific, but it wasn't specific.
Yeah. It's not going to be enabled.
Like everything, the usage landed on straight IndyCar.
Correct.
So,
So if you use it as a driver and it's enabled because someone did a mistake, it's fine.
use it today. Give me a toe.
The issue today is that you're putting on ourselves when sometimes it's a reaction. If you use it for like half a second, doesn't make any difference. You're gonna disqualify someone for using it when it could be a reaction of like pressing a button.
No.
Yeah.
No, purposeful. Where do you have yours?
Here.
I have mine here. I mean,
It doesn't change. Like, I think now, well, whatever.
Pato, with that, thanks for coming up.
It's fine. You're
Appreciate
welcome for
that.
the entertainment.
Thank you
Love
for
to
that.
be
Good luck.
entertaining for you all.
Good luck in the race coming up later this afternoon. He'll start second. Obviously, Alex Pillow also joins us. Third straight pole here at the IMS Road Course. Second Indy TP1 award of the season. 14th career pole.
Sorry.
As well. No, you
this.
were fine.
No, but I've been crucified on Twitter.
Do you have any other funny moments from the condensed weekend? Very condensed weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I guess those clips are kind of the peak funny moment from the weekend. The Rossi radio kind of in his frustration, biting at Honda was pretty good. Pato O'Ward put out a pretty funny tweet, which I've got up now after the race, saying, "Painful day. On my way to get in a salt bath. Burn sage, incense, open the windows at my house, pray to a candle, purposefully knock over salt, smack some wood, maybe buzz my hair off while I'm at it. What else? Anyways, congratulations at Lundgaard off on your first win with the team." So that was quite funny. Malukas also started singing some song in the press conference after the race. We'll play that in here as well.
You know what was going on?
I gotta love it.
Hey, during the yellow flags, you know what was going through my head? That song, like, I was driving in my Chevrolet. You know that? Because they keep playing it around the whole... And I couldn't get it out of my head. I was trying so hard to focus, and I'm just in my Chevrolet. And then I was laughing because I'm like, I am in my Chevrolet.
I was not thinking.
Honda just doesn't have...
I was just trying not to hit the curb in 12. I couldn't see it.
But what takes the cake, Dan? Do you think the push the past?
Push the past, isn't it?
Pretty comedic. I don't think it ever got to a point where it became particularly tense. It was a little bit fraught, but it was more just kind of quite a comedic few exchanges, to be honest. Very entertaining.
I thought the lack of warm-up made this race actually quite interesting because teams had basically no idea on kind of fuel strategies or necessarily heavy fuel runs, etc. So I thought that was something interesting. Obviously, that was a byproduct of qualifying being rained out. And I know there's a lot of debate about this already. The reason why qualifying wasn't delayed wasn't because it was raining, it was because the medical helicopter couldn't take off. And one characteristic of IMS, which is different to most other tracks, is because of the tarmac of the oval, it absorbs the rain in a rather different way. I'm not technical enough to explain this, but it creates a lot of standing water and basically puddles of any asphalt, which means that it would, well, watch the Indy GP 2022 if you're not sure what we're on about, because it just creates these rooster tails of spray. I mean, you can't see is the problem, which obviously isn't as much of an impact in qualifying as it is the race, but if the medical helicopter can't take off, if somebody crashes in very wet conditions, that is a bit of a disaster. So ultimately, yes, they cancelled it for the right reasons. I still think that it is a shame we didn't get to see qualifying in the wet because you rarely see Indy cars in the wet. And it would have been good to see his Pillow as good in the wet as he is in the dry, for example. So that was a bit of a shame to miss out on it. I obviously understand why, but that was still disappointing. I know a few drivers, Foster was one, Rossi obviously in his interview made comments about not being able to qualify in the wet, which, yeah, it's a shame because we never really see IndyCar in the wet, which is bizarre, but hey ho. Every time it is wet, it always seems to be on ovals.
Yeah, we had that Road America session, which was qualifying again, which was thrilling. Wet races, there's very, very few.
The last
really.
one was probably that Indy GP one, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's probably was. I feel like we had a wet session in Toronto, was it?
We did. It was a qualifying session because Pillow got caught out in the far transfer.
Yeah.
Maybe 23?
Yeah, you could be right. But yeah, not many at all. So that was a shame. It would have been great to see them up. But again, medical helicopters can't take off. There's nothing you can do about it. Good point on warm-up. Like, maybe it did add a bit to the race. I think ultimately what added most to the race was the incidents kind of throwing curveballs with left, right, and centre. But yeah, interesting point.
Right, we forgot to do our Fast 6 and predicted tournaments in our last race review, but don't worry, we're not forgetting this time. We're going to get back to you with the results shortly. Right, podium predicted tournament, and this is one of the most interesting weeks we've ever had in podium predicted tournament because we had 3 sets of people pick exactly the same results, which is bizarre, but really, really interesting. So the one outlier in all of this was actually the top scorer because the fans went for Pillow, Lundgaard and Malukas, and were obviously one off of both Lundgaard and Malukas, so they earned themselves 4. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, and then the other duplicate results was our writers and Tom Gaymore both went for Palou, Kirkwood, and Lundgaard, but only got one based on predicting Lundgaard third. Archie and James, you went for exactly the same with Palou, Rahal, and Lundgaard, which was an outstanding shout. But obviously Lundgaard and Rahal being the wrong way around, so you only earned 3 points.
Yeah, and I changed it last minute, which I've done before. Which they were the other order, which would have been.
Which you're not doing again, I presume.
Yeah, well, but then it'll. When I don't do it, they will finish in the order that I would have changed it to, won't they? So that denied me a 5-pointer, unfortunately. So
yeah, it did. That was a shame. And then me and Will Buxton both went for Palou, Lundgaard, and Power. So one off with Lundgaard. So Archie, you've opened up a bit of a lead though. So you're on 21 ahead of me, James, and the fans on 19. Then Will Writers and Tom were all on 17.
It could have been a 4-point gap though. Would have been substantial.
Yeah, could have been. Now, Fast Six Predictor Tournament, we obviously, speaking to different people over the last few weeks, didn't get a chance to do. So we both went pretty similar in the end. We both went for Palou, Malukas, Lundgaard, Rahal, and Foster. The difference was when I went for Reward and you went for Marcus Armstrong.
Indeed.
So we try and create these battles. What was the battle between O'Ward and Armstrong? Is there anything they have in common which makes it worthy of a battle? I don't think so, really.
If they had fights with Grosjean?
I don't think O'Ward has.
No.
I don't know. I don't think so. Not too much in common for them. And you might have seen on my Twitter, I did put a tweet up because all of mine made it to the Fast 12. And I was like, this is going to be the 1 week where I'm going to get it bang on. And we haven't done it on the pod, so there's no evidence of me doing this. And I think I've officially got the closest anybody's ever got to 6 out of 6 in Podium Predictor, which Felix Rosenquist owes me a million beers at this point. So I got all of them, apart from Rahal, and Rahal qualified 7th. So if Rosenquist didn't set his lap time, I would have had the first ever 6 of 6. Like, I'll still happily take 5. And obviously, Archie, you get 4 because you missed out on Armstrong and Rahal. But man, I was close. That's annoying. That's the second time. The other time I've been really, really close is there was an oval once. I'd got the top 5, and my last guess was Palou, and Palou was the last car to run. And I think he ended up qualifying 9th or something, which that's twice I've been so close to doing it. So I sense it's coming. But I'm very, I know Foster and Rahal aren't absolutely outrageous shouts in the road course, but they were slightly optimistic. And
yeah, I don't know how optimistic they were because they are probably the best team.
Well, it's the only time I'm ever going to predict both Rahal and Foster. So
yeah.
Paid out.
Can you remember the standings? I've got them, but
no, because they're on your whiteboard.
Yeah, hazard a guess though.
Well, I think I was in a slight lead, so I guess I've opened it to maybe 3 now. It's my
2.
guess.
You're 16-14 ahead.
Low. Right. We won't do our Fast 6 for the Indy 500, as we'll probably do that later this week.
We will, yeah.
We will do it this week. And James will play along. He's a non-scorer thermal 2024 type. Imagine if...
No, he's an Indy only.
Yeah, James is an Indy only. Imagine if, after 2.5 years of doing this, James is the one in his first attempt who guesses the Fast 6 correctly. That'd be so embarrassing.
Just takes the trophy.
That would be absolutely awful. So we've got to pray that doesn't happen. We might have to sabotage James.
100 bonus points if you get it right.
James can win the championship if he gets it right. It's one entry. It's the equivalent of like Catherine Legg winning this year's Indy 500. Just steals one out of nowhere. But yeah, that is it for the road course. What a fun race that was. And now we move on to the more exciting stuff on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is the 110th running of the Indy 500. Practice starts on Tuesday ahead of the race on May 24th. And we're going to get quite familiar with us over the next couple of weeks. As if you haven't caught it, we will be flying out Monday. We're recording on Sunday, so we'll be flying out tomorrow morning to Indianapolis. I hope this goes up before then. Well, no, this will go out on Tuesday. So by the time
maybe this should go out on Monday.
Maybe this will go out on Monday. So if this goes out on Monday, we will probably be on a plane by the time you're listening to this. No, maybe we won't actually, because our flight's at 2:45. So if you listen to this on time, we won't be on a plane. So you'll find out. But anyway, we're getting off topic here. We're going to be there, as you know, for the entire month of May. We're expecting to do a daily podcast. It might not be on YouTube. You'll have to wait and see, but definitely be on Spotify and all your favourite podcast platforms each day. And we'll have clips from drivers. We'll obviously have kind of a debrief of the day. We'll have any press conference bits in there as well. So it'll be kind of a mashup. And you'll also get to hear about 3 Brits trying to navigate Indianapolis and all the American culture we have to get used to, and like it's more than you expect, I'd imagine. Like it's a lot of weird food stuff and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's going to be great fun. Like I know we're both really looking forward to this. We've had this in the works for about 6 months or so. So I can't quite believe the day's finally tomorrow, because it feels like it's one of those things. It's just like one of those things which is just always going to be in the future, and it's eventually going to happen. But like now it's getting a bit real, which is really, really cool.
It's mad. Yeah, I honestly can't believe it. It's beyond exciting, and I can't wait to see everybody out there. So yeah, I guess all that's left to be said is see you from and in Indianapolis.
Stole my outro.